How often do we see a K-pop group, especially BTS, in the global spotlight? From their remarkable achievements to their position as cultural ambassadors for Korea on the international stage, BTS has become a phenomenon that cannot be overlooked. But this time, it's not their music that's being discussed. There's a massive controversy surrounding them, one that involves the Korean government and their management, HYBE. Is it true that BTS was deceived? What really happened? Did the Korean government take advantage of BTS and make a poor decision? Let's dive deeper because this situation is more complicated than you might think. BTS is known all over the world, not only for hits like Dynamite, Butter, and Permission to Dance, but also for their extraordinary achievements in promoting Korean culture. They are more than just a K-pop group. They are a symbol of Korea's global influence, with a positive impact on the country's economy, tourism, and diplomacy. In fact, they have been recognized by the South Korean government for their invaluable contributions. In 2022, the South Korean government introduced a policy that allowed K-pop idols, including BTS, to postpone their military service until the age of 30. This decision was a surprise to many and was welcomed by BTS's fans, who had long been concerned about the future of the group. The policy seemed to secure BTS's future, allowing them to continue their international careers for longer. However, a few years later, the world was shocked by a sudden announcement from the South Korean government, stating that BTS members, who had been granted military service postponements, would now be required to serve immediately. Even more shocking, there was no clear communication between the government and HYBE about this new policy. 2 years after the initial policy that allowed BTS to delay their military service, the South Korean government suddenly decided that the postponements were over. This new policy meant that BTS members, who had been recognized as cultural ambassadors of Korea on the global stage, would be required to fulfill their military duties with no further delays. For many, this decision was shocking and felt like a step backward. It wasn't just about BTS, but also about how the South Korean government seemed to view BTS as though they were just another obligation of the state, rather than global icons who had given so much to the country's reputation. HYBE, the agency that manages BTS, understandably felt torn. As a major company that had built BTS's image over the years, this decision by the government not only risked the group's career, but also created uncertainty that could have far-reaching effects. This situation wasn't just about BTS, it also affected the entire K-pop industry, which had been enjoying international popularity. BTS isn't just any music group. They have become an integral part of many people's lives, and their fans, known as ARMY, have always supported them every step of the way. When news of this new policy broke, fans reacted with a mix of confusion and disappointment. Some felt betrayed, while others felt let down. Why? Because it seemed like they and BTS had been given false hope. The real frustration stemmed from the fact that the government had previously granted BTS a delay, and now, without warning, they were being forced to fulfill their military duties. Many felt that this decision was rushed, and did not consider the bigger picture, including the impact on BTS's career and the broader K-pop industry. It wasn't just the fans who were confused, HYBE also felt blindsided. As the agency responsible for managing BTS, it had worked hard to maintain the group's positive image, both domestically and internationally. But with this sudden, unclear policy change, HYBE felt cornered on all sides. When discussing military service, it's essential to understand the broader context. In South Korea, every man between the ages of 18 and 28 is required to serve in the military unless they have specific exemptions, such as health issues or other acceptable reasons. It's a duty that has been ingrained in the country's culture, and there are no exceptions for BTS, despite their international stature. What makes this controversy even more significant is that BTS, who has made immense contributions to their country, found themselves suddenly subject to the same rules as every other citizen. It wasn't just about BTS having to serve. It was about how this decision was made, without considering the positive global influence BTS had created for Korea. As symbols of cultural power, BTS serves as an example of how K-pop can impact the world. They have elevated Korea's name on the global stage and created significant economic value. So when the Korean government forced BTS to fulfill their military duty immediately, many felt that the policy didn't take into account much of the broader context, including its potential impact on the group's legacy. Some may argue that the South Korean government's policy was necessary to enforce equality and consistency for all citizens, but others feel that this decision was unjust, especially given BTS's significant role. There's a belief that the policy was too abrupt and didn't consider the long-term impact on the group. This isn't so much about the military service requirement itself, but rather the way the decision was handled. HYBE, which should have been in communication with the government, found itself blindsided by a policy that was introduced without prior discussion. They were never given the opportunity to talk about the consequences for BTS and the group's future. Many fans feel that BTS and their supporters were deceived by the government. However, it's important to note that this may be less about outright deception and more about poor communication and a policy that was implemented without careful planning. HYBE, which has always maintained BTS's global image, felt greatly disadvantaged by this sudden change, and fans could see it too. While this may not be deception in the literal sense, it's clear that the government's decision caught everyone off guard. The government was perhaps too focused on enforcing the military service requirement without considering how the global influence of BTS could affect the country's image. So, was BTS really deceived? Perhaps the term is too strong, but it's clear that the South Korean government's decision was a major shock and has left a lot of uncertainty in its wake. The controversy highlights the tension between national obligations and the global impact of a cultural phenomenon like BTS. While this issue may not be resolved anytime soon, one thing is certain: BTS remains an irreplaceable part of K-pop history. ARMY will continue to support them, no matter what happens next. So, did the government deceive BTS? Maybe the answer is more complex than it seems, but it's clear that this situation is full of tension and needs to be handled carefully. Whatever the outcome, BTS will continue to be an iconic force, and their impact on the world will never be forgotten.